All right, so big news in the industry today. We're going to break it all down for you. This is all about the Microsoft leaked documents and its connection to crypto. So this is an important one. If you are interested in crypto at all, even if you're not a gamer, you want to stay around for this one. It's going to be a good one. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's get into it today. And I do want to thank our sponsor, and that is Tangem. If you guys are looking at self-custody, this is one of the tools that I like, and it's a great tool because it's utilizing a card system that is basically an NFC device. If you go over to their website, you can learn a little bit more about the Tangem wallet. And if you decide you want to get one, there's a couple of options you've got. You can go right in and get their most recent one, which is the new Tangem wallet releasing here in early October. And then, or possibly even go in and get your classic wallet. The cool thing with the new one is you're going to have the optional seed phrase among some other things. Now, one of the questions that I'm asked often is, how secure is this, Paul? Is it, because in many cases, if you've had NFC cards, there's these technologies out there that are able to breach these. And Tangem tweeted something that was happening over at one of their events. And this is a product called Flipper Zero, which is Flipper Zero. Let me kind of play this for you guys real quick, and it'll show you real quick.
The wallet here. Let's try reading his NFC. So, he reads it, but it can't parse the data. So, let's go ahead.
All right, so what Flipper Z does is essentially can analyze any NFC, most NFC, and able to pull the data right from the card. They were unable to crack the wallet right here on Tangem, so they showed that example. So if you guys are interested in security, and that's your thing, and it should be anytime you do self-custody, this may be a solution for you. Make sure and use our discount code. It's down in the links below. All right, so let's get into a couple of points, starting with this news right here. Leaked documents show that Microsoft recently explored the idea of supporting crypto wallets on Xbox consoles. Do you think this next console or software update will include support for crypto? This was actually from Forbes, where they were talking about the leaked documents, showed an Xbox roadmap from May of 2022 that included support for crypto wallets. Now, this is pretty big. Now, there's a lot here that supports this. Other than the leaked documents, we'll break into all of that for you guys as well, and also what its potential is. Now, this was a tweet we put out back in March of this year, March 18th. We put out this: Ethereum and NFT wallets coming directly to Microsoft Edge browser. Browser-based games are about to get a helping hand from the most powerful tech company in the world, being Microsoft. And then we showed the actual function of it. And I'll zoom in on that. Right there is the crypto wallet integration. This is Edge wallets. And then right there is Ethereum. So again, this is the early stages of what many of these tech companies are prepping for, which I think is going to be a war in the gaming market. Now, this has happened before with Microsoft. Remember the browser wars, when Microsoft essentially was going head-to-head with Netscape. And at the time, Netscape had most of the market share, was doing so great, and everybody kind of counted Microsoft out. And of course, Internet Explorer came, it kind of opened up the browser wars. Google came in behind that and pretty much took most of the market share. But the point is that Microsoft is making some moves. Here was a good example. Here was Azure. NFT solution accelerator. So this again also ties into Microsoft and the use of platforms like Ethereum. So more data kind of showing in where exactly their strategy is going. If you look at the Fortune 100 Web3 investors by number of deals, Citibank, Goldman, IBM, Google, Microsoft, number 15 right there. So you can see this is getting pretty interesting right here when it comes to the major companies understanding where this is going. Now, most of this has been mostly on the institutional side, which is reasonable and understandable. But I think Google and Microsoft are definitely out here in front. Now, the question will be is, how does this play into the rest of the market? Here's some examples of some companies. Let me kind of zoom in on this for you guys. Of some companies already making a lot of Web3 moves. Obviously, Microsoft with Activision, their acquisition positions Microsoft to build metaverse capabilities. You've got Meta and Imagine PTIX, PayPal and Curve. You can see there's a lot of companies in here that have really started to connect the dots here. Nike, Artifact, we've covered it extensively. And then obviously Apple, we'll see how that goes with their virtual worlds on the avatar side. The other things that I think when we get into this, if you think about, well, is Microsoft ready for this? And I think one of the things that Microsoft, a lot of people don't realize this, they have learned their lesson of these early stage growth markets. And what I mean by that, this is a statement that goes all the way back into, Wikipedia land. And ironically, I worked for Microsoft at the time when all this was going on. And this was by Bill Gates, where he simply said, this is also a famous that the internet, we're not interested in it. This was a quote from Bill Gates in 1993. Let me kind of zoom in on that for you guys. And the internet, we're not really interested in it. And the reason I know this is because when I was working with Microsoft, as a young tech guy, I was thinking, oh my God, this internet thing is going to be an absolute barnstorm. We're going to see an unbelievable growth, unbelievable innovation. And the teams that I was working for, all of my uppers, were essentially saying, don't worry about it. We're going to focus on OS and the future of the Word suite and all the utilities and productivity tools. And I couldn't believe it that was happening, but it did. And I think Microsoft has learned something from that history in being too late to an early stage market. And that, I think, is where we're going right now. When I go to this next clip right here, it gets into the Xbox history because they also almost lost the war. Listen in.
The Xbox One was a byproduct of a lost and misguided Microsoft, which did not have the interest of gamers at heart. All we heard was
TV, sports TV.
Followed by horribly disconnected attempts at salvaging a situation where irreparable damage had already been done.
Fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message. If you don't like it.
If you have zero access to the internet.
Meanwhile, its opposition went on from strength to strength, using Xbox's missteps to enhance its position. Xbox went on to lose its stronghold in two key regions, the United Kingdom and, more critically, the United States. At the time, all this seemed like a near impossible task, and many were talking about the possible disappearance of Xbox from the gaming space altogether. It nearly happened, but instead, in comes in Phil Spencer, the newly appointed head of Xbox.
All right, so Spencer was kind of the messiah there, and understanding the challenge that he was up against in terms of being able to go against, makers like Sony, et cetera, that really kind of dominated the gaming space. The Activision deal was so critical for their success going forward, especially in the gaming sector. But now the question is, how do they maybe one up their competition? Because there is a new innovation land that is pretty much untouched. It's a brand new area called Web3, and what we'll see with the use case of crypto and NFTs. All of this is about to crack into what I think is going to happen in the gaming sector right now. If you look at this next clip, which is where Spencer talks a little bit more about creators, and this is why I think we can draw the conclusion. Let's go to a clip by Phil Spencer on creators and why this is important. Listen.
So that's why Xbox is interested in, going down this road hand in hand with Activision Blizzard King. But what's the benefit to gamers and creators? And if possible, is there maybe an angle in the UK that benefits them?
In the end, it's all about player and creator benefit. Like, we know that as building a platform, if our players aren't finding great games to play, and if our creators don't feel like they can build the best games and find players for those games, like, nothing else matters. Because we're trying to create a larger marketplace for people who are building games across more screens. Yeah. Different business models help players, and it helps creators as well. And that's our job. And in the end, this has to benefit players and creators, or it hasn't been successful for Xbox.
I think his statement right there of benefiting creators in the end is critical to the overall strategy of how Xbox and Microsoft are going to go forward. And the tie-in to Web3 and NFTs is going to open up a whole new, not only creator community, but also a creator industry in terms of revenue, business models, all those kind of things are going to really advance in Web3. And I think that is the scenario that Xbox, with these leaked documents, might be setting up along with Microsoft. If you look at what's happening, though, with Meta, obviously Meta Connect this week, they had something that was kind of interesting, and that was the fact in this little promo, they actually put in a statement in there and the first look at what's next for the metaverse. So they're still using the term. They still see the potential here. And the predictions of what Meta is going to be doing and what Mark Zuckerberg is going to be doing could be much bigger here. And there's some interesting correlation between Meta and Microsoft. Now you have to think about it. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Now think about who the enemy is here. It's most likely Apple and what is happening with Vision Pro. I think there may be a connection here that starts to set things up quite interestingly. Now, as you look at Meta, this was just a quick clip right there from something that Zuckerberg posted. And part of this was really the fact that most likely we're going to see something dropping from Lego in connection with Meta. So again, most likely a lot of new stuff dropping. Most likely we're going to see some hardware. And what I'm really interested in is what does that roadmap look for with all of these new devices and potentially new experiences coming to Meta. And we'll find out on the Connect event. Let's go over to this next clip. This is getting into Game Pass and how this connection into VR works, especially tied into what was happening during this leak. Listen in.
We have waited so long for Xbox to finally come to our Quest headsets. And while none other than Mark Zuckerberg made a huge promise that Game Pass would be coming soon to the Quest 2, Microsoft leaked some very important documents that showed their interest and plans for upcoming VR products, with them mentioning that they see XR as their future opportunity, even so much that Xbox can leverage it to build its next-gen platform for immersive apps and games. But probably the most important one, noted that Microsoft wanted to expand its hardware portfolios to include complete new categories, pointing towards VR devices.
All right, so you can look at it two ways. One is Microsoft is very late to the party in terms of a VR, XR headset. Maybe there's something hiding in the wings, unlikely, or could they come in and actually partner with someone? Remember, they were late to the party in the browser wars. They were late in the mobile wars, and all of those slipped out of their control and went to the incumbent, which right now is really Apple, if you think about that, and Google from Chrome. So Meta may be the perfect bedfellow for Microsoft, especially from a VR headset capacity and the tie-in with Game Pass. So there's a lot here. If you go over and look at The Verge, this article, Zuckerberg laid out the basis of the plan in Facebook. That's its new interoperability principle. People should be able to use any of our apps and reach their friends. They should be able to communicate across networks easily. And then he didn't give a lot of details on how this would work. So this, I think, will be what we see or possibly hear this week at the MetaConnect event. Maybe there's some big news about to drop. We'll find out very quickly on how this goes. All of this is going to be tying into something that is called XMTP, which is going to be looking at the potential for really kind of going across a variety of different wallet capacities, but also the interaction of being able to communicate in a lot of different ways. And I want to jump into XMTP a little bit more on what Lens Protocol is doing. Here's a good example. Lens, of course, is congratulating Orb, which is announcing that they raised $2.3 million to build some kind of this whole concept around everyday apps for Web3 social. This included Superscript and a couple others out there. Master Plan, let me kind of pop that out for you guys so you can kind of see it. But there's the team, of course, behind it. You see Stanny in there with Ave. These are some of the angels. Sandeep from Polygon, Eric Tang. I mean, this is a very interesting and strategic model that I think is going to be interesting to watch going forward. Now, a couple of things I want to get into is some of the tech that's being used here with Lens and XMTP, how all of this ties together. Let's go to this next clip.
So I'm going to search for nearby users on one device. I'm going to search here also. No pairing required, pretty fast, and works offline also. So we can see deep insights between two different accounts. As you can see, the first one is that we both have one common event set ended at each Denver. We both have XMTP enabled. We have one common follower in Lens. And based on these common attributes, based on these insights, we calculate a recommendation score of how likely is it that you should connect with the other user. So if you want to connect, then you can also just quickly go and send an introductory message with the XMTP to introduce yourself to that user. And I can also go and check out their Lens profile from here and follow them there.
Now, I know what you might be looking at there, maybe a little confusing, but I want you to think about social media amped up to a level that has this kind of connectivity. One, it was using XMTP, Lens Protocol, and then it even had that proximity locator there of, you think about at events. Let's just go to regular events. there used to be some technologies within social that were kind of going in that direction before we got into this whole broadcast methodology behind what's happening over on X and even Facebook to a certain extent. But the point is that this is a whole new revolution. I think this, again, also starts to play into where the future might be going around all of this. Now, part of this is going to be a certain amount of simplicity. And of course, Ethereum is the beast in the East that everybody has to kind of consider. I want to go over and look at another clip here that talks about onboarding through Ethereum. Listen in.
So first news, in the next year, all wallets, they are just going to disappear.
I choose a username. I will do a cool selfie. It asks me to create a passkey, so I will do it. I will continue. I use Touch ID to create it. Just put my finger. At this time, instead of generating the passkey into the device, into my laptop, I will generating it using my mobile phone. What's happening? Instead of clicking on continue here, I click on use a different device. I will display a QR code, scan it. The generation of the passkey is directly on my mobile phone. And instead of using a Touch ID, I can use Face ID. The user has an account with an NFT. All the transaction has been supported by the application. And yeah, that's it.
What you just seen is much more secure than any software wallet, and it lowers the cost to enter Web3 securely. So that's it. We sold onboarding. Thank you very much.
All right, so this was at ETH Global, and I think this is a major move in the right direction because this is one of the, I would say, thresholds you have to cross, especially if you look at mainstream adoption. And when you think about mainstream adoption, the gaming sector is the behemoth. It's the one that everybody has been looking to try to solve. And it's also one of the most challenging ones out there. If you look at this tweet from Tyler Winklevoss here, and of course, Winklevoss, his connection to Facebook, you probably have all seen the social network. This is the guy that supposedly helped Zuckerberg start it. So these guys see the future, and they really connect the dots here. And I think the dots being connected are what's happening in the gaming sector. He states here, crypto is gamer money, and gaming is bigger the industry than Hollywood and music industry combined. And I would agree with that in the sense that this is why it is so important that this framework of development, what we're seeing at Meta and what we're seeing at Microsoft, is going to become huge, because we're not necessarily seeing these kind of things with Sony. However, there are some other players in Asia that could be breaking through that glass ceiling as well. So it's going to be an interesting, I think, scenario that plays out here when it comes to the kind of companies that are going to start developing. So I want to talk about a few tokens and a handful of projects out there that maybe you should be watching, overall. If you guys are not following our YouTube channel, here's one of the projects that we've looked at for a while, and that's RFOX. Now they're on our MSI, which is our overall market sentiment index. But you can check out a little bit more about RFOX. These guys are heavy into the metaverse, so that's one to be watching for. Another one that we did was this parallel interview right here. This one is very interesting, and that's the Prime token. And we did an interview with them talking about AI and mixed reality. Remember, these guys were the ones that took a lot of forward thinking around the XR side of things. And I think this is something that is going to continue to grow. So we'll see how this plays out. But I want to go to this next clip here, because this is where Parallel was actually doing something interesting. A small company, it was David versus Goliath. They were stealing the XR team from Apple. Listen in. AR, playing around with, which, by the way, this is fantastic graphics, I must say. It appears that the trading card games are ripe for this kind of integration. What are your thoughts on how fast this could become reality within the trading card game genre?
So we're really excited about it, actually. We one of the earliest explorations we did was build a sort of test environment for an AR prototype of the card game. So if we do hit an area of mass adoption and people are ready to embrace it, I think we are ahead of the game in that regard. It's also worth mentioning that a couple of our team members were key elements to Apple's team building those AR glasses that everyone's talking about, and we were able to steal them away, and they've been helping us with the AR elements of our environment. So I think that we'll be ready.
I was looking at a tweet from you guys. This was the Apple Vision Pro test exploration, and you're already making a lot of these kinds of advancements. So a lot there. I think this is, it's interesting because you've got projects like Prime and others that have really started to kind of break through this scenario, especially in terms of development. And this gets back to the point I'm making, and that is there's going to be a lot of creator-driven communities, projects, and games that really start to break through into this next layer of innovation. And I think that's what Microsoft is setting up for. And if they do it right, this could be where they actually come back into the front of the pack in terms of gaming and also integration around all sorts of things, productivity, all sorts of stuff that could tie in with MetaConnect. There's a lot here. Further into this, the other one that we watch here on the network all the time, as you guys know, is Render. And Render, of course, has already connected the dots here with what they were doing. And interesting that they retweeted this statement here, Microsoft announcing a new AI-powered companion to help navigate almost any task. Is rendering going to be something that they need here, especially in Web3? Interesting point. Another tweet right here, some of the partnerships with Render kind of shows. NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google, Apple, Mattel, Cinema 4D, Decentral, and Solana, and then of course Metaplex we've talked about before, and UX3D. So this is big. I think we are dealing with a breakthrough opportunity that now is getting a chance to, in a way, be kind of revealed, because similar, I think, to, eras in the past, the difference is now we've got these leaks that are coming out. And I think this is the thing that starts to showcase really the advantage of where all this is going. Here was Aptos Labs partnering with Microsoft to drive Web3 into the mainstream. That's another factor I think that needs to crack in. Obviously, onboarding, we showed a little bit there on ETH. But onboarding is going to be a big deal of it. But I think the gamer community is going to be the gateway for Web3. And I think that most of these major companies are now starting to realize that. Very, very big news here. Speaking of these partnerships, I want to get to a clip here talking about Avalanche and potentially HTC. Listen in. So John, I have an idea for you guys. I look at what's happening over at HTC. They've already started to plug in wallets, integrations, and I want to say, we're going to talk with the HTC. I think we need Avalanche right here. You'd have Ethereum, Polygon, and then you could get Avalanche in something like this. What do you think about something like that in terms of partnership?
Absolutely.
We announced a partnership with Lamina One. So Lamina One is powered by Avalanche, and it's a layer 1 blockchain that will really help us accelerate this vision of making sure that cross-worlds and cross-platform ownership, transferability of digital assets and identity can be seamless.
Boom, that's where we drop the mic. That's exactly what PBN does, and that is connect the dots, try to pull these partners together and really understand the vision of where this is going. If you just look at what Lamina One architecture is, right there it is, Avalanche. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Man, we're getting good at this, guys. Anyway, so a lot happening out here. TechCrunch, of course, also reporting a little bit here on Microsoft as they start to move forward a little bit. And some things that they are doing, capital raise led by Microsoft Venture Fund M12 and include investors like Framework Ventures, Hashkey, etc. Guess what? Polygon Avalanche ecosystem to fund for Blizzard. So all of this ties in to really the two gaming chains that I think are going to break through, and that is Polygon and Avalanche. Now, Avalanche is the one I'm very interested in just because of their dominance in what's happened in Asia and the strength in the gaming community within Asia. Avalanche has kind of come out of nowhere. We had their gaming head on multiple times. If you guys have not watched our videos from Avalanche, go back and look. I mean, they're years in the making in terms of seeing what Avalanche has really been up to. And interesting enough, we've been able to isolate that for sure. Also remember, we did a video on this. Avalanche's first game is coming. And of course, that was talking about what was happening with Gunzilla. And this, I think, is pretty big because this is the first game on Xbox, also, again, Avalanche-oriented, and tied into the biggest gamers out there when you think about Dr. Disrespect and what's happening there. Lots of stuff happening for sure in the ecosystem around Microsoft. Microsoft seems to be coming into the center of the orbit, and a lot of things are happening around there. Is that coincidence, or is this ready to break loose and see a titan be birthed in the Web3 space? We're going to find out. very soon. Let's jump over to the charts real quick. Take a look. Some of you guys have been watching Chainlink, the connection there. We've been in and out of this token. We just exited yesterday on this one. But Chainlink did a nice little climb here. Others to watch, of course, Solana. Still on a flat line. Remember that Solana has Breakpoint coming end of October. There'll be a lot being released over there. If you look at Avalanche, this is one that I think is going to get into a position of good accumulation. Now, the target zone for this is probably in the 5 to 650 range is what I'm looking at. We're trading at around 895 right now. Matic, of course, is also almost like a mirror on this. Matic, we've been trying to get them on the show. We actually had Sandeep scheduled, and he had a last-minute change. But we're going to try to get Sandeep back on and get you guys in. A couple others that I wanted to kind of showcase here. Let's jump down to Prime Token. Of course, that right there with Parallels. Obviously, it's been growing here. This is on the daily. Not bad. What was that growth if you were in Prime back here in May? Where would that be right now? 171%, not bad for Prime token holders out there. Aptos, we talked a little bit about that one. That one's been a little bit more on the decline. And of course, RFOX is one that is in our MSI, which is our market sentiment index. This one, if you look at, has kind of been up and down. I'll look at a little bit more historical, but if you went back here and say the beginning of January and we were doing our portfolio strategies, let's take a look at where that would be back here in January, just up slightly around 72%. But look at that spike up here, which they had in February. Again, this will be interesting. Does RFOX pop because of what's happening? Let me go a little closer here. It's getting a little bit of a move in the last couple of days right now, maybe in preparation for what's happening with MetaQuest. Could be a play here. I don't know. This is one I'm watching very close as well. All right, so here's Microsoft taking a quick look here, and you can kind of see a little bit of a rise here. Obviously back here from March, Microsoft has been one of the 7. And I think when you look at the market in general, still 26% gain, not bad even if you're in Microsoft right now. But if you look at one of the, because I think these particular tech stocks are the ones that are going to be a little bit more resilient in the S&P 500. Meta, of course, a little different story. It's absolutely been just on a murderer's row, it feels like. Let's go back here to January and see what we've done with Meta at 133%. I don't know if you guys remember the video that we did with Gary Soloway when we were looking at Meta trying to do a buy-in at around $100. That's exactly what has been happening with Meta. So most likely, depending on what happens, this also could be a lot of pre-run up to Meta Connect, which is the event. Maybe, I don't know. Do they drop something that important though that could really accelerate Meta on a continued growth? That's where we get into some scenarios that are more macro driven because of the economy and some of the things that are happening around that. I'm watching Meta, Microsoft, and a lot of these other tokens that kind of flow into this Web3, AR, VR space and the gaming sector. So continue. If you guys love what we're doing, make sure and smash the like button. It's the one thing that helps us understand what you want to hear and see on the show. And of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure and subscribe right now. Click that little bell. When we go live, it's going to give you a notification, all those good things. And if you're not in the Diamond Circle, get in right now. It's free, it's easy. Use that link down below. Catch me out there on Twitter. It's @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.